Tea time with Brian and Rob. Welcome.
Cheerio.
I am drinking tea. It is tea time.
Really?
Got my Japanese style teacup with no handle. I like the no handle style. My wife got me this when she was in Japan, and it has if you're listening to this and you can't see the video version, it has a bunch of different types of sushi on it and all their Japanese names because we like sushi. But apparently once you go to Japan and have sushi, like sushi here is just ruined. Like she still likes sushi, but she was like,
there's a few places. There's some underground places in like places like New York and LA. I know. I've been to one in LA that is, you don't get to pick.
Oh, really?
And, oh no. Nope. You get what they're doing that night because that's what they got.
Yeah.
And they do it the way they want to.
What was that sushi movie that came out like 5 years ago?
Jiro Dreams of Sushi.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like over a decade old.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't remember. I fell asleep watching it.
Oh, dude, that's a fantastic movie.
I'll never know.
Craftsmanship, about passion, and then the peculiarities of who the public thinks they're getting everything from, and because they think it's some superstar, they rave about it, and in the end, it was his son who was doing all the work behind the scenes.
Of course.
The Apprentice. That was it. It's The Apprentice. He was his son had been apprenticing with him since he was a kid, right?
Yeah. Who actually makes the food? Sous
and
chef.
He was like a 50 or 60-year-old man. And Jiro's like 90, And it was like every time he won a Michelin star, his kid was the one that was providing everything. Yep. Not to take anything away from Jiro. He was the one that created the whole backbone of that and the system and everything. But yeah, it's the team, man.
It is the team. It is the team.
So many people don't realize that.
Yeah, they're all the ones who are complaining about what other people are doing instead of finding a team and distributing the work and figuring out what everybody's good at and then getting after it. They're too busy crying about what I didn't get or what they did to me or what's not my fault. Not interested.
Nope.
Can't do it.
If anything screams victim, I'm out. The moment it starts becoming everybody else's or somebody else's fault.
Oh my gosh.
Lost me.
So I started listening to Francis Ngannou on Rogan today. Holy shit. That dude is amazing. He started working in a sand mine in Cameroon when he was 10. You know why? So he could afford to go to school.
Wow.
And everybody was like, he got into boxing for fun. Everybody was like, this is stupid. He did sand mines, and then he was a taxi driver. And he said in Cameroon, that means you have a motorcycle and people ride on the gas tank. And so, he had a job, and everybody's like, oh, you have a job. You're going to end up being a farmer. You're going to be a family. He's like, nah, I'm out of here. I'm going to go fight. I'm going to box or something. He was just going to box. Got to France, started doing MMA for fun. And then, he's jacked, super athletic, started whooping people's asses. And boxing was just too hard to get into because there's so much politics in boxing. Mm-hmm. He said Dana heard about him. He said he was out of Cameroon just a handful of years, like 4 years, and the UFC signed him. He barely spoke English when the UFC signed him.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But it's crazy. His parents divorced when he was a kid, went and lived with his aunt and then his grandmother, and they were super poor. He was saying they were so poor he could not afford a notebook to take notes in school. He had to write in the margins and on blank pages in his textbook, his old textbook. And he was like, I'll just outwork everybody. He was working this sand mine where they're literally shoveling sand all fucking day. And you know, he just stuck to his vision. Everybody told him it's a waste of time. And he was like, nah, he just always was stubborn. Said he did things his way, stuck to his vision, just kept working, just kept working, just kept working. Now he's going to have his second title fight for the baddest man on the planet. So pretty cool.
It's awesome.
Really cool story, man. There's more too. I haven't listened to the whole thing yet. I'm just about an hour in. But I mean, we saw him. You remember when we were there? We were at the PI and he was there. What a big human.
Huge.
Jesus.
Huge.
He cuts weight to make the heavyweight cut off, and he's shredded at 265. Woo. That is not somebody you want to get punched by.
No, man. That is not somebody you want to. People don't realize.
No, they don't. You don't want to get hit by a lightweight from the UFC. They put you to night. Those guys know how to hit so hard and so accurate.
There are too many lethal human beings walking around now. And then there's psychos.
I love it. There are psychos.
Like my neighbor across the street, we found out.
Uh-oh.
So I got this neighbor who rides motorcycles. And he saw me right after I moved in. And he's like, hey, neighbor. Like from across the street. My name's Charles. And I'm like, hey, Charles, I'm Brian. Nice to meet you. Have a wonderful day. And I was like, that's a cheery guy. Same dude 3 nights ago. Tyler pulls up to my house, comes in and goes, will you get the fuck out here? Excuse my language. Will you get the fuck out here and make sure your psychopath naked neighbor who's dancing around in his living room doesn't come out and rape me? And I'm like, what? And I go outside and I look upstairs because he's in an apartment across the street. So my house looks out at this small little, it's a house that's been converted into apartments, right? And so there's 2 upstairs, 2 downstairs. He's in one upstairs. And the front window, there he is dancing around to music and just doing his thing butt naked. And I mean, you see, like,
I love
no
it.
care for it. And he was obviously on something. Or he had lost it. And I mean, it was going on for hours, bro.
What?
Yeah. So now there's a running joke about, you know, my neighbor who.
Awesome. I wonder if he listens to podcasts.
I don't know. We're going to find out.
Hey, man. I love this. I mean, of course,
he ain't hurting anybody. He ain't hurting anybody, so it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, really.
But, it's just
funny.
You never know if that guy's just losing it. He's one of those people who's losing it upstairs, just doing whatever the heck he wants. If he's got a weapon, that's a dangerous human being.
I feel like people who are a little bit more out like that, like, those aren't the folks I worry about. I worry about the sharks who wear business suits. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not worried about the freaks who let their freak flag fly, because you can see them. That was a lot of F's right in a row. You can see them coming. You know, it's like, I remember one time when Poppy was, which is people who are listening, it's my daughter. She was like, maybe she was 12 or 13, and we were at a stoplight, and this guy walks by, and he's obviously not all there. We'd seen him around before. He's probably homeless, has all black on. It's summer. He has a leather trench coat on, a black, like, biker's do-rag, spike necklace, chains,
Dungeons and Dragons,
full, like, cut off leather gloves.
Yeah.
And she goes, oh, Dad, that guy's kind of scary. And I was like, yeah, I guess he's kind of scary. But the thing is, like, you could see him coming. So if you're walking down the road and you see that guy coming, long before he gets near you, you just cross the street. I was like, the people you got to be wary of are the ones that don't wear the uniform that says, I'm dangerous. And she was like, huh. And I'm like, yeah, you just have to assume, unless you know somebody, that you don't have to assume their intentions are bad. You just have to know you don't know their intentions.
Yeah, well,
And you know
I
what I
don't know,
mean?
man.
It's like
You see
guys
that
like
thing?
that.
You see that thing that happened in Pennsylvania? Those neighbors, bro. Like,
I mean, I had a crazy neighbor for 2 years.
yeah, and
Who damaged my
it's,
property, threatened to burn my house down, um, threatened me with a pit bull, threatened me with a pit bull close, to the point where I had to like arm myself walking from my truck to my house because she would stand at the property line with the pit bull and be like, I'm gonna, because before we had a fence up. We had many altercations, verbal and physical, with this person, because she essentially, like, the land that my house is on was at one time owned by one family, and then when the father died, the land got broken up between the siblings, and a vast majority of the siblings were actually not very good people, criminals, drug addicts, and that's how we got this house. It was foreclosed on, and there were two older women who lived in the property next to us who were the like sister and wife. So they were the mother of some of the mothers or aunts of some of the children who had inherited the property. Well, these guys, because they were addicts, would let homeless people come in and just live on the property. And this one woman, essentially, she moved into one of the houses, took over the household, and then shortly thereafter, the first elderly woman ended up in a nursing home. Then shortly thereafter, she moved into the second house, and that elderly woman mysteriously died. So when we bought this property, before we knew any of this stuff going on, she actually came out of one of the houses. There was no fence between the land. She comes out and tells us, hey, that the house has been sold already. No need to look at it. And we were like, no, we have a real estate agent. Like, can't lie to us. Like, we're doing this the right way. So we were like, okay. So anyway, we end up buying the house, and we started doing stuff like you do when you buy a house. We started putting in landscaping. We started doing stuff, and it's just upset her whole plan, which ultimately ended up being she wanted to squat and then sort of illegally consolidate all of the land. And so she did a bunch of different things, but on Black Friday, sort of the coup de grace was Black Friday in 2013, maybe, or 14. We're out shopping, and we get a call from one of our neighbors, just like, hey, this woman is in your yard and something's going on. And then she's like, oh my God, she's running over here. So we were keeping bees at the time, and it turns out she came over and was ripping out our landscaping. She crossed the property line, literally was ripping our landscaping out, like destroying trees and shrubs. And she kicked a beehive over because she was a crazy person, which is a mistake. And so about 10,000 angry bees swarmed her. And we're like in her hair, and I'm so sorry that I missed seeing this happen, right? But anyway, long story short, police got involved, and nobody would say anything. And so for me, like, I remember the minute she spoke to us, I was like, oh, this lady is crazy. I'm gonna have to watch out for her. And so I'd much prefer that than like the American Psycho type who like wears a suit and has a nice haircut and is like seems normal, and then they invite you over for a cup of coffee, and while you're looking at their college soccer trophy, they stab you in the neck. Of course, this is all hypothetical. All right, folks, that'll do it for episode 12.
And there's episode 12. Welcome to the world of Rob Wilson. Here, I'm going to tell you about my entire life of moving into my house.
Oh, this is great. I hope you're not expecting to listen to a podcast about breath work. I don't know if we've really talked about breath work that much. 12 episodes. You know what, though? Honestly, I think we say a lot about breath work, and I don't know. I don't know that we need to talk about it unless it comes up. But anyway, it is funny, though. Like, that is the actual stuff of life. Like, breathwork's a tool. The stuff of life is, what weird shit is happening? My neighbor's dancing naked? Like,
well, I mean, I was just using breath work to, regulate myself as you were going into your story.
trying to stay awake.
Yeah. And then, like earlier dealing with all of my digital and
digital
problems.
debauchery.
Yeah. Digital problems that I'm dealing with today. And another one that I'm dealing with that just came up as we were doing this. I mean, it's just like one firestorm after another right now, man.
Sometimes you're the dog, sometimes you're the hydrant.
That's right.
Just how
and
it
you
is.
know what? All good.
Still breathing, still a
Still
chance.
Still breathing, still a chance.
That's right. That should be a t-shirt. Still breathing, still a chance.
That's right.
Hey,
That's
TM,
right.
if you're listening, we got that. You heard it here first, folks. Don't be printing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's interesting. I mean, regulating emotionally when things don't go your way might be the skill.
I think it is the skill. And the fact that I was literally thinking about talking about that, and you just brought that up.
we connect it.
Yeah. Oxley and I are pretty deep on this right now with looking at trauma and stuff. And it's really interesting. We're trying to work around the word trauma because it's just it's such a polarizing word. But one of the things we came up with is suffering, because trauma is suffering. Trauma is actually something you create. I create. There is nothing else to that. Traumatic experiences are vastly different, like getting in a car accident, being raped or robbed or mugged, or, like those are traumatic experiences, right? But trauma is something that we create. So when you think about it, it's like this emotional side of things, and breathing being that great regulator of it. It's one of the great powers we've got in order to understand or see how I'm off, where the system's off, or how I'm suffering. And when we because we use performance as something that we play with, it's like there's actually this physiological fingerprint for it. Like there's actually the physiology gets off and it becomes a chronic problem, to where I get into this place of almost like this addictive pattern or cycle of needing to hurt myself or suffer in order to feel good about myself to progress. And the patterning becomes this thing. And emotionally, we do this all the time. Like that's where the emotions play in.
I think trauma becomes a real. Two things. I think trauma becomes a problem once it's woven into your identity and you remain unaware of it, or unaware that it happened, or unwilling to change it once you're aware that that's happened. So once it's woven into your identity, then that means you'll continue to make choices that will further embed the trauma that you've already experienced, and will make you more likely to experience new trauma, right? Because you're less adaptable. And trauma, by definition, whether you're talking about the human body or the human mind, is essentially I experience something that I'm unable to adapt to. Like it's outside of the scope of my adaptability, right? And so psychological trauma means that you came in contact with an experience, whether it was something that you did yourself, right? Because you can be traumatized by your own behavior. We see this happens in war, where people have to do things that they didn't know were part of their character, like kill, right? Like they didn't know that doing that thing was a part of their character. Well, and when they see that come out, it's
actually, so it's yes, but what it is trauma is actually the inability to express yourself authentically. So it's the reduced capacity to express oneself authentically. You have suppressed how you felt in order to do something for the means of somebody else, or because you felt compelled to suppress it, right? And the military is a perfect example of this, right? War is a perfect example of this. Didn't realize that I was going to, like, sure, I knew I might be getting into this shit, but this happened and I feel differently about this. But I did this and I feel differently. And so this inauthentic, so you get caught up in this authentic, inauthentic place. And authenticity and love are the two things that we play with as children that we inevitably throw out or get pushed, suppressed our authentic selves as children. So think about acting out as a child and your parent being like, no, you can't, you shouldn't be angry. You shouldn't be sad. You need to be happy, right? Well, I'll give you love. I'll give you something if you do those things, right? And so this inevitably becomes a pattern, right? Where is in, like, you talk about a, like, situation of war, like that's the perfect place for it to set up, because you literally are giving up self and your idea of what that may be when an event happens or if it happens.
Yeah, I feel like though that there's a delineation there between a wound and trauma, because you can have a psychological wound or physical wound for that matter that is easier to heal from. I think the part where you're talking about like being authentic or inauthentic with your feelings comes with the expression after the fact and as it's getting integrated into how, like, the formation of your identity around that event or around that series of events. And I mean, man, it's complicated, because sometimes what's traumatic for one person isn't traumatic for another, and we see that with war for sure. But we know that child abuse, like sexual abuse, is universally traumatic. Like there are some things that are so disruptive to the schematic of safety and normalcy that it's wounding for everyone, right? That's why it's like,
yeah, I would
right,
say
right.
the big difference there, like, look, those are two radically different things, but like you're also
Totally.
saying child versus pretty much an adult, right? A child isn't like they're not able to really comprehend as much, right? So that's where that can fit in. Whereas, like, I don't know. I mean, sure, I've got shit I've dealt with, I've had, but nothing like a child sexually abused, which is insane, the numbers on that stuff when you really look into it, because we are
It's
looking into that.
disgusting.
It's absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane.
I
And
mean,
it's,
not even just kid, like sexual assault. There's
yep.
pretty
Oh,
horrible,
bro.
evil shit
Yeah.
that's going on all the time. And I think what's really important, what's at least as important as defining trauma well, is defining what to do with it. So it doesn't even matter. I think ultimately, if we try to assign a value judgment of any kind to trauma, we're looking in the wrong direction, because
Correct.
trying to argue with somebody about whether or not they should feel traumatized about something is just how about this? It's a misappropriation of energy at
That
best,
it
right?
100%.
And
100%.
and so I think what's better is like what Emily does, right? Is like, okay, well, what now? Like, how do we engage in acts that empower you, that move you towards something better? What's your practice that gives you strength from this experience, that where you can create a better environment for yourself and for people around you, and you take all the power of that experience to hurt you away, and you start moving towards something that's meaningful to you. And we know that there's like legitimate neurochemistry that goes with that. Like if you're moving towards a goal that you feel is meaningful in steps, you'll release more dopamine. Like that's a fact. That's not like Rob Wilson's opinion. Like we listen to Huberman talks about it all the time, right? Like goal setting and moving towards small achievable goals that are somewhat difficult. That drives you towards action and releases dopamine. right? Whereas the opposite does not, right? So it's like, all right, well, I am sorry that bad things happen to people.
Yeah.
But now what?
Yeah. I mean, the problem that I see right now is that people are constantly in this state of help, like chronic. I've got to optimize. I got to be better. I got to move forward. I got to be moving forward. And it's like nobody's really taking a look at themselves to understand why now they're constantly needing to get better, improve, do these things. That then becomes the part of the identifier in the problem. And this is where where I think the breathing stuff really plays a role, because it's like you see the physiology follows this stuff. Like there are physiological reactions that are happening. Like I got to improve. Like your type A's who have to continue to go. Got to work out, run ultra marathons, do Ironmans, do triathlon, do CrossFit as hard as I can all the time. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things. I've done them all, and I still do some of this stuff, right? But it's like, to what end are you doing it? What is the idea behind it? Is it, I got to constantly improve to do this?
Yeah. Well, I think it's kind of like, I kind of think about it in terms of like precision versus accuracy. You know what I mean? It's like people who are like, I don't see anything wrong with the motivation to become better and to achieve. Like, I don't think it's intrinsically problematic to be that way. And I think, like we've talked about before, it's somewhat personality driven. The problem for me is when it's precise, like you know how to get better at something, but you're not getting better at the thing that could potentially have the most impact on your life. So it's like you're using all this energy and drive that you have, and you're like super focused, and you got all these achievements, and you're making more money or whatever. Meanwhile, like you have no support network. You treat people like shit. You're accumulating massive debt. You have no idea who you are.
You pretend you're happy and you're not.
Yes. And that is a problem. But if you have your personal ducks in a row and you are working hard on, achieving some goals, I don't feel like that. I don't feel like that's a problem. I think, like you said, it's like when people are trying to use it as a replacement strategy for what their real deepest needs are, right? They're choosing the fantasy of happiness over the reality of it.
Imagination, man.
No kidding. So, but you can see how, man, that spirals out of control, and how that can lead to all kinds of addiction, whether we're talking about exercise addiction or substance abuse.
We're addict machines. That's all we are. We're addict machines, and we need to be aware of what that is. There is no special for addiction.
No,
I've listened to that I listened to that for 20 years. Like drug addicts and alcoholics, sex addicts, all these people, like there's this there's this umbrella over this that says we're special. We have a substance problem, or we have this sort of a problem. I'm special to that. No, you're not. No, you've just been obsessive about this thing in an attempt to regulate yourself, your nervous system in particular, and you've patterned it as an identity as to who you are. Now you're believing if you don't do this, and I'm not saying that these aren't great programs and you can't go into these things and do this stuff, but it's the idea that you or I aren't capable of addiction is false. Dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, all of these things, all of these chemicals are mimicked by the chemicals that we try and ingest and put into our bodies.
Yeah.
So we're on a reward system.
Totally. I mean, this is what we talked about. I mean, how many years ago? 5 years now, in the Art of Breath right? Was something that we've been bringing up. Like, hey, you're regulating your state all the time. People are like, why do I need to regulate my state? You're like, you're already doing it. We're just asking you to be aware of it.
Yeah.
You're already doing it. When you choose what music to listen to, when you work out, you're regulating your state. And that's another place where people get, identify. I only listen to this, or I never listen to that. Right.
There you go.
Right. I only do this and I never do that. And they just want this sort of narrow and easily accessible alteration in their state. Or my favorite was when we had the gym, I can't work out without loud music. I'm like, you can't? Well, speakers, like, like as far as like technology is concerned, they're pretty new. And like, I remember when it's so funny because
you're such an asshole.
I know I am a dick. Sometimes I would make people work out in the quiet, like once in a great while I would do it, but then there would be a fucking coup over it.
I typically always work out with no music.
Me too. I'm outside at my house, It's like, whatever. I don't care. I can't hear it over Gear 4 anyway. All I can hear is myself breathing at some point anyway. And like, honestly, that's what I'm focused on. And again, not that I never listen to music or a podcast, but it's just not, when I'm going to train, it's not my primary concern. But people would come in and be like, oh, we need music. We need this kind of music today, Rob. We need something heavy.
I don't think
loud.
You understand the difference between needs and wants.
No.
Jim Jeffries.
Yeah, you need to drink water.
No, it's like the girl that he's on a date with, and they go, and she's like, I need to get this lotion if I'm going to spend the night at your house. He goes, I don't think you understand the difference between needs and wants. Like, you don't need that lotion. Like, you want that lotion.
Oh man, I love.
No, I need it, or you're not getting laid.
Oh, so I need it. Yeah.
I need you. I need it. Yeah.
Oh man, he's awesome. Yeah. We haven't heard from him in a while. I wonder what did he do a special? Oh, he did. You know what? This last year he did that special where he was sitting on the couch, right? He was
he did a stand up. The whole thing is about him. Basically, the whole thing is about him on this date with this chick, and him eating cheese and being lactose intolerant and having 40 minutes to get to a toilet or he's going to shit himself.
I remember.
And it's it's such a great bit, man. It's so good.
I remember now. I remember this now.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. Comedy saves
me. It saved me.
Yeah.
That's all
Did you watch Andrew Schultz special?
I watched some of it.
I like him.
I loved him on Instagram. I think
if you watched his Instagram series, then yeah, it was a little repetitive, but I thought, boy, did he take
he saved the pandemic, like early stage.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Turn your phone to the side. I'm gonna show you something.
Tekashi 6ix9ine.
See, that's why we need comedy, because we are absurd, and somebody has to remind us that we are ridiculous. And then you laugh at yourself and you go, Jesus, I am absurd too. We're all absurd. Okay, let's take a break from taking ourselves too seriously and act like I'm not an addict. I don't have any problems, right? Like
I have no addictive tendencies. Nope, you don't have any.
Yeah.
You're perfect. You don't have any patterns whatsoever.
I don't have any addictive tendencies, but you better make sure I have coffee.
Yeah. That's right.
Right? Oh, yeah. All right. Thanks everybody for listening. We went
wonderful time with tea with Robert.
tea time with Rob and Brian. Thanks for listening, everyone. I'll have some more stories about my crazy neighbor next time. Laters.